Wait, all right, and we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Double Trouble with J&G. My name is Jack, and I'm joined by... And we are here live every Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time here on Clubhouse, later uploaded to YouTube at some indeterminate point in the future. And we're here to banter about art life and everything in between with a couple fingers of our favorite beverage. Gunnar, what you drinking today?
Yeah, right. Today I am drinking sink tap water because I am actively running the gallery right now. So we're recording live.
Probably not best to be bombed then, running the gallery. I am currently drinking 2 large fingers of a Western Grace brandy, actually. It's quite delectable.
Oh my God, you know what I drank last night?
What is that?
That would have been my ideal beverage. I drank a 40 ounce of PBR at my gallery opening.
Holy crap. that's like an aggressively art ho thing to drink of you. So that was a bold choice. Good Lord, son.
Yeah,
dude. Good Lord.
Yeah, dude.
Well, my friend, tell me more about the gallery in New York. How is this going? What have you been doing? What have you been up to?
Yeah. So last time we briefly talked about, I'm running 2 gallery shows at the same time. One in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, one in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. But the one in Manhattan just opened last night, and we had this dude Danny Ritz perform, and he brought like this crowd.
Nice.
It was such a tender, awesome moment seeing all these people for the first time. Vaxxed, maskless, in the space, just jamming out. You know?
I do believe I saw that on your Instagram story, and I was like, oh, yeah, everyone's vaxxed now. This is cool. Like, holy smokes.
I had someone very salty, like, slide into my DMs. They're like, I hope, they're like, how was everyone unmasked? Like, I hope everyone's vaxxed. How could you be assured? And I was like, look, I know everyone. I know all of them are vaxxed.
Yeah.
It's all chill. Yeah. We're returning to normalcy, you know?
And, you know, that's gonna be an interesting challenge, I guess, to slide into a topic, I guess, that we could, is to see kind of when sort of the inflection point of people that are like, you know, we're kind of fine now because we think that everyone around us is pretty much vaccinated.
I tell you, I'm on the streets in New York every single day, and I'm now raw dog no mask.
Oh,
the first official no mask.
Bold.
Day. I carry it with me in case I need to go into an establishment or something.
Sure.
But I'm running a space and I'm not wearing it.
Yeah.
So
you know what they call you, raw dog danger down there. So, all right.
I wish someone would call me that.
Well, I'm calling you now, raw dog J. Something that was real bad. All right, moving on. So we need to segue away from that shit. Jesus.
Oh my God. Well, should we segue into the story?
Yes. Story time. Story time with Gunnar.
Okay. So here I am running this gallery in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and I have no Wi-Fi. So I was like, okay, I need a book to read to just get me through it. You know?
Sure.
And so I go to this bookstore, and I'm thinking, I heard this book Norwegian Wood in the song, and it's by this guy Murakami, but everyone says you should read Kafka on the Shore. So I'm between these 2 books.
Okay.
And I go into the bookstore knowing they have both, and they only have one.
Okay.
And it's Kafka on the Shore. And so I'm like, it must be fate. Like, I was in between 2 options, and one presented itself.
Okay.
You know? So I'm like, okay, I'll buy this book. It is an incredible book, and it has been so interesting to read. Like, usually it takes me a while to get into a book, but this one I'm like 400 pages into it already. And it's like, it's all, it talks so much about, not only fate, but this idea of predetermination and how things are sort of set in motion already, and you're sort of like riding a wave sometimes. But that was like one moment when finding the book, the form sort of followed the function. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Okay, so would you classify this book as a novel? Is it more of a prescriptions for like life and things like that? What would you classify?
Yeah, it's a
novel.
It's a work of fiction. Yeah, it's
gotcha.
Stuff. Any favorites? Which one? Yeah.
In the middle of
that one just
running a
3 days
gallery.
ago.
Mr. Danger is running his gallery, so yours truly is going to take over for just a moment as Senor Goondog mutes himself. As Senor Gunner mutes himself. I'm just going to take over, and we're gonna run it as a single man show for the moment. So there is one topic that I did want to talk about today. And as Gunnar
And I'm back.
he's back. Okay. Well, shit. Okay. We will explore that topic later then. I just didn't want you to feel like you needed to be vibing in here. Okay. Cool.
So you were gonna say something.
No, I was not. I was doing a brief interlude as you were selling art.
I know. Well, we're doing it live here on Double Trouble.
We are always doing it live on Double Trouble with J&G.
I'll mute myself next time I have to dip out like that.
No, it's all good, dude. It's all good.
Yeah, I was talking about, this idea of like fate and like predetermination. And the book sort of like talks about it a lot where, for like a little bit of context, the kid is like given this sort of like prophecy where it's like, you will do this in your life. And he's like, sort of like sees it and is like, there's nothing I can really do to fight against it because it's just going to happen.
Sure.
And
that's very predestination heavy too. That would that's a probably, and at least in like the Christian religions, that's a huge that's the big debate, right? So you have Catholics predominantly that are kind of the most major sect of free will, and then you would have sort of your other sects, I believe. Presbyterians maybe are predetermination. They're a significant portion of Protestant sects, notably like the Puritans, for example, were that are very heavily with predestination. So this is a debate that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds and probably over thousands of years.
Yeah.
Do we have free will?
Yeah. I mean, so I really quick want to get your take on the whole idea of fate as a concept and where you sort of stand on it before I tell a little story about the gallery yesterday.
Okay.
It ties in perfectly.
Okay. Hit me.
Yeah, no, I wanted to hear.
Oh, just my take on free will or predestination? Yeah. I mean, that really depends on if we're living in a simulation or not, right? Because if we're living in a simulation, then we don't have free will. But I like to think that our existence here, I'm an optimist. I don't apologize for that. And I think our existence has meaning in some way or another. I don't always, I grapple with that sometimes of like, what exactly is that meaning? But I think, maybe the way I was raised, it was very simple. It's love your neighbor. So if we have I think we personally, I think we have the free will to do that. And there's some people that choose to love their neighbor, and there's some people that choose to not love their neighbor. And that's to me, that's a pretty easy defining line on if your life has meaning or not, is do you love your neighbor? So, I mean, that I'm a very simple person. I don't pretend to be complicated and have a complicated worldview. That's just where I end up, and that's me. But not to get too existential, but hey, yeah, but I firmly believe we have free will and love your neighbor, and that's about it. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
And we're doing it live here on Double Trouble with J&G to reset the room.
Yes.
Every whatever day this is.
This is Friday.
At 5 p.m. in some time zone.
That's Central Time. Yep.
And we do it live, and that's what we're doing.
We do it live. We pour ourselves a couple fingers of bourbon, and we banter about art, life, and everything in between. Yes, sir.
And here's a little bit of art that will transfer into life.
Okay.
And then we'll transfer into everything in between.
Okay.
So yesterday, I'm at this gallery, right? And it's a very slow day. There's not many people coming in, right? But this one old woman walks in, and I'm like friends with the gallery next door, and we're all just sort of waiting around for someone to come in. So she walks in and starts looking at the art and starts asking me questions. And when I give the first answer, she like scoffs at me. She like, huh.
Oh,
and I'm like, what? That's a little weird. Then she proceeds for the next hour to brutally just rip apart every single painting that I have. Like,
that's
really
tough.
just like tearing into it.
Holy smokes.
Like atrocious, colorblind, like really just like digging into it,
goodness.
And I'm like a Southern gentleman, like, and so I'm like, going along, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Is that how you feel? Like, tell me what you think. And I just heard her out, right? Even offered her a little bit of wine at the opening at the end,
Jesus.
But as she's going back to get the wine, the gallery next door comes over, and the dude's like, bro, and he comes over and he like daps me off, and he goes, bro, she is the biggest hater on the Lower East Side. She comes in and trashes every fucking show, and she's like, and I find out, so she keeps like talking to us, and talking Terrell's now there, and she's talking to us. We find out that she herself is this aged, failed artist.
I was going to say, does she have work of her own? Because if she doesn't have work of her own, she has no right to talk.
And here's the whole tie-in, right? It's almost as if she has witnessed the failure of her career.
Sure.
And now she has made it sort of her life mission to go in and critique and, you know, try to bring other artworks and artists down, you know? It's almost like she is still coming to terms with her own path and where she is. And so she's like fighting against this
brutal
like position that she's in or how things went in her life, right? And she's grappling with it. And so tying it into something with like life, it's like, you know, when we can't escape those, when we see fate, right? And when we see this sort of predetermined thing that we can't escape, you know, it's almost like we're not at peace until we can come to terms with that, with how our path has gone, you know, and where we're going.
And at the end of the day, it's incumbent upon us to come to terms with where we've ended up. Because I think we have a lot of survivor bias, right? In our, that we see all the time. So I can think of like one really cringy example would be, you know, the whole idea of like a LinkedIn flex, for example, you know, people flaunting their professional success on LinkedIn for clout from other people that will like look at it essentially, right? But there's an intense amount of survivor bias in things like art where there's a very high failure rate, right? Things like startups is a hugely, I mean, I guess to tie it back to something in between there, I mean, especially in Silicon Valley, right? Like there's a startup culture and it's like, if you don't have a startup, what the hell are you doing? And then if you don't have a successful startup, what the hell are you doing? But I mean, when you look at the statistics, it's a tiny, tiny percentage of all, even tech-related startups that fail instantly, almost instantly, because it's not easy to do. And it's not easy to become a successful artist. But we have this massive amount of survivor bias that plays into it. So I think coming to terms with...
briefly,
yes.
Can you give us a definition of survivor bias?
Sure. So the only stories that really get told about things like a startup, for example, or like a successful art career, like I think a good one is an acting career, because a lot of prominent actors will say, follow your dreams, move to LA, become an actor, for example. But they're the ones that were successful, either because for a variety of reasons. And I truly believe that luck plays a big part in, I guess, making it in very prominent circles or areas that have many, many people that try to enter that space. So I think like acting is a great one. You have tons of actors and most of them in LA, for example, are working at coffee shops. So the survivor bias would be that the only stories that you hear about acting are from those people that have successfully made a career out of it. The people that are not telling their stories are the people working, you know, 2 jobs in the service industry, still looking for their big break, because that's failure. You don't see failure in, you know, like I mentioned earlier, the hashtag LinkedIn flex, right? You don't see failure in someone's Instagram picture. Nobody's posting an ugly picture to Instagram. In our day-to-day lives, we don't see depictions of failure. And I think that's deeply unhealthy. We have to come to terms with the fact that failure is a part of life.
I think you've hit a golden idea. I would love to see some sort of like book or like short doc or short video about, you know, from the perspective of failed artists and failed actors,
100%.
You know, failed startups.
100%. Because I mean, what is so that's kind of a piece of art in and of itself. And what is art if not telling the human condition and depicting the human condition? And failure is a massive part of the human condition. So why do we not see that?
Yeah.
Because I mean, every movie we watch, right? Every superhero movie ends well, right? The superhero saves the day, the city's saved, whatever. You know, insert ending there. Or your protagonist in every TV show is successful for some point at the end of the day. And people don't like watching stories that end in failure, because I think we are conditioned to dislike failure and not accept it for what it is, and accept failure and move forward.
Well, and people are trying to learn from things, right? So they're trying to read things that will sort of like teach them. And, you know, you wouldn't take life advice from someone who's failing at life.
But what is failing at life, right? I mean, you can have a very successful life and fail at most endeavors of what you do, right? And think about it.
It reminds me of Abraham Lincoln, who lost every election up until he was president. That's a massive, you know, that's not how it actually went, but He failed a lot.
He failed a lot.
Something on there.
But I think at the end of the day, though, like it would have been, my contention is that he still would have had a very compelling story to tell if he'd lost even that presidential election. So if he'd lost every single election that he'd ever run for, but because he showed up and he was a smart guy and he was really good at what he did, I mean, the Lincoln Douglas debates, he lost, right? I mean, the general consensus was that he lost the Lincoln Douglas debates, but he showed up and he failed, but he still showed up. Right. And there's definitely, that's commendable in my eyes.
Yeah, I think there's always something to be said about someone who continually steps up to the plate,
100%. Also, this brandy is hitting absolutely different right now. Holy smokes. Will recommend. J&G has traditionally been a very bourbon heavy show, but I will say, good Lord, this brandy's good. So find you some Western Grace brandy. We're not sponsored, but we're looking for one. I'm still working on the Patagonia sponsorship, but we're trying to get brandy up there too, along with our bourbon and Jeep sponsorships that we're trying to work on as well. So we're not going to run any more ads for now.
I don't even know what that is.
It's kind of like I believe it comes from wine, really, something like that. I really don't know much about brandy, and I won't front and pretend that I know much about brandy. I know about bourbon, but this is a whole new ball game. So, yeah.
Yeah. Entering into unknown worlds.
Entering into uncharted waters, some might say. And that's just where we go on this show. Yes. What are these uncharted waters that you want to explore?
I had a little quip, and that was my little segue. Uncharted waters. Thinking about that, and it's sort of like a tie into like the conversation we had about fate and that kind of thing, and determinism, and like sort of what sort of space are we living in? Are we living in a simulation? Do you think there are multiple planes of existence going on right now?
Interesting.
Where like we're not necessarily in one moment in one like place, but we're like hopping between them.
Sure. So physics at the moment says that it's kind of, it might be possible, which, I generally trust physics. I don't know. Those seem like smart people. But I think at the end of the day, there's not really a way of knowing. It's kind of this idea that like we only have so much capacity to be able to reflect on our own existence. While we have what differentiates us from, a dog or a cat is that we understand that we're human. Like we understand our existence and we understand where we are in the universe, like our place in the universe. It's a very powerful thought that we can carry with us and that we can hold on to. But I think I believe that our minds are very, very powerful computers. They're very, very powerful things. They're also not infinite. There are limits to what we can understand and comprehend. And comprehending in like an infinite number of alternate planes of existence is, in my mind, slightly beyond what I really have the capacity to understand. And it also, you also can't carry that with you as you go about your day-to-day life, right? If you're going to go down to to your local watering hole and grab some drinks with friends, you're not contemplating constantly the existential reality that you might be living in multiple different simulations at one time. That has no bearing on your day-to-day life and your day-to-day activities. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a simple man. I don't think I can really handle that. That's too much for me, my brain to like constantly be ruminating on in my day-to-day life. And I think for a lot of people, it can affect their mental health in really bad ways.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a crazy analogy. You know the game Subway Surfer?
I unfortunately do remember my days as a Subway Surfer in the back of the bus in middle school for a little nostalgia.
So I feel like you can't be like Subway Surfer, like running on one train for like the whole time, like running on one track and then jumping over to the other track and then running. But I will say, wait, let me step inside. There's like some dogs barking. I will say, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We're good.
Okay. I will say, like, I recently went on this like spiritual journey through the aid of something, but it was an amazing experience.
What would that be, Gunnar?
Well, who knows? Who's to say? Right? And the person who was leading us on this adventure sort of gave this analogy. He said, it's sort of like opening a door, right? And you're able to step through and sort of see what's on the other side.
Sure.
But you can't stay. And you only get like a peek of it, right? And then eventually the door closes, but now you know it's on the other side.
Gotcha.
So maybe we have the ability to sort of like see into those other things and see into those parallel things that are going on. But yeah, we can't exist in two planes at the same time, you know?
Interesting. So I would ask you then as a follow-up to that, do you believe the kind of Joe the Bro Rogan concept that you can access alternate planes of existence through the use of mind-altering substances?
Maybe. Yeah, I'd say maybe, you know.
Considering your experience, you would say that that's possible. I don't know. I don't think I've been that far under the influence of a substance of the mind-bending variety to really make a hard judgment call on whether that's possible or not.
Well, I think the phrase mind bending in itself is like very telling. It's like it's pushing you into a different space, you know? And it's really like, you know, we all have these blinders on, and when we get pushed too far to the side, everything we know at a certain point is out of the blinders, you know? And we're looking at something totally different.
It's like if you had blinders on the side of your eyes, then you're rotating your head in maybe like a 45-degree angle. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You're sort of seeing into alternate
That's a
space.
really good analogy.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So the reason I thought of blinders was because I'm thinking of, you know, going to the horse races at some point. So I think that would be a fun little interlude. Yeah. Horse races are great. So this is a totally trending off of our mind altering substances so as not to incriminate either one of ourselves here. Horse races are it feels like stepping through a portal in time back to a meaner and more gambling heavy age. Meaner in the very medieval sense of sort of like a less refined almost. And like this, we go and watch, you know, like a 3-minute horse race, and that's like your whole day, right? You spend your day at the races, like in the words of the Peaky Blinders, we're going to the races, you know, that whole bullshit, right? And I wonder, you know, in watching a horse race, even now, is this race fixed? Like, are they fucking us right now? Do they know the odds? That's a very good point. Predestination, really. Is the horse race that is your life, you know, a fixed event, right? Is it? Yeah, damn. So I guess horse racing did really tie back into our theme of fate and predestination today.
You have your intents, right? You have your things that you're starting off with. You know, what's it called in coding? Oh fuck, I have a computer science minor, and I'm just trying to figure out what this is.
This is going to be deeply embarrassing.
You just took the class. What is it?
I took the first computer science class that college offers, guy. I have no idea what you're talking about.
You start off with that, and the function does something with those things. So
that's, gotcha.
You know,
your givens, maybe your givens.
You sort of walk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, your givens. Your givens.
Yeah, that's a general engineering thing in general, but oh well.
And so like a horse, you know, you're given like a sort of set DNA and physical ability. Physical ability is really good. You can sort of like improve it and shift it and move it, but you're sort of like, you know, I'm not going to be 7 foot, you know, I'm stuck at a nice 6'5" right now. You know? I
mean, yeah, like Michael Phelps was literally built to swim, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
If we're talking about predestination, you can't deny the fact that is a human being that is built to move through aquatic bodies extremely quickly.
Dude. Webbed toes is all I have to say.
I mean, come on.
Predetermination, I don't know what.
Come on. And I mean, his arm to torso ratio is also huge, right? Natural body fat percentage is minimal.
Wrong word.
What's up?
Is it predestination and not predetermination?
I mean, those are both.
Or those
predestination would be the slightly more that'd be the slightly more religious word for that.
Yeah.
So like for those of us that maybe grew up at least near the church, that would be kind of the word that because like that's the word I use, right? That's kind of what I've heard a lot of. But yeah, that's God damn it. Somebody up above blessed Michael Phelps with the ability to swim freaking fast. And I mean Usain Bolt for that matter, right? Because this is a kind of a fun fact that I like to throw out there, you know, fun little party fact. I believe it's of the top 50 or 100 meter times, fastest 100 meter times. At some point in the careers of every single one of those athletes, there have been allegations of doping. So that person's career has been in some way tainted of the top 100. All of the other times that are in, so there's one person though in those top 100 times that has never had an allegation of doping in their entire career. and that person is Usain Bolt. So it's Usain Bolt and all of his times that are in the top 50. And then after that is everyone else that all has doping allegations. So if you want to talk about the best athlete ever in a certain sport in the 100 meter, it's absolutely Usain Bolt, and it's not even close.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's a little. I got a little piece of information.
Okay. Hit me.
You know the thing called the Big Bang? You ever heard of that thing?
The Big Bang. Yes.
Yeah. the event to start all events.
Sure.
You know?
It was a function. Some might have called it a function, not an event. But I heard it was more mixer vibes. But that's cool.
It was like low key. It was like
okay. It was pretty low key. Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? Okay. So you know how like every action that we do is a process of like chemical reactions in our body.
Yes. Essentially.
Yeah, like you move a muscle and it's like, amino acids and stuff.
Yeah, and
sensors in the brain and whatever.
Shit's happening.
And and for the most part, like light and trees and stuff and other natural stuff. That's all just chemicals and the organisms that are just chemicals, right?
Sure, something like that. Yeah.
What if instead of like this guiding force that's like pulling everything together, what if it is all just like a domino reaction starting with the Big Bang and everything is just falling into place like such?
So everything is moving towards greater order rather than disorder?
No, it's like just like a hula hoop. It's just going around and it's doing its thing and things are building, right? Like society is building and all that. It's all coming from. It's all right. The dominoes were already set, Like it's one reaction that's like perpetuating, and everything like the things that we think of as giving us like free will, like I can choose to do this thing or choose to do this thing. All the influences that we use to like make up our mind or like our decision, that was predetermined by this one
Interesting.
reaction.
So you're essentially advocating for a hybrid of the free will versus predetermination idea.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the free will thing is like, dude, that's got to be bogus, right? Because we're raised, we're not like coming.
Oops, I think we lost Gunner. Alrighty, well, are you back? There he is. You're back, Mr. Danger.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Alrighty. Yeah, you cut out there for a second on us.
He knows too much.
Yeah, the lizard people cut you off there for a sec.
Yeah, dude. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I wanna conclude with something a little lighter, maybe, because we've gotten really deep into the existential topics today, and I'm thinking we close with a little something that I like to call closer energy, which is shockingly fitting at this point in time. So for all the gentlemen in the audience, I'm assuming that at some point in time, you and your lovely lady friend or lady friends have watched or man friends for that matter. I apologize in advance for that one.
Keep rolling.
A little thing called Crazy Stupid Love. So Ryan Gosling's character in Crazy Stupid Love is named Jacob Palmer, and he's a master in this concept that we like to call closer energy. So you might be asking yourself, what is closer energy? Closer energy is the ability to confidently enter a social situation and close. I'm sure you can connect 2 and 2 there. Closer energy manifests itself in the sexual success of the male species day in and day out in this crazy, stupid, lovey world. And I think it's just kind of a fun thing to bring up because in this very like sappy rom-com, we see the most like brutally efficient person ever at getting people to sleep with them. And it's really impressive. It's a fascinating movie to watch.
Speaking of closing, Double Trouble with J&G, we have a strict time limit. We only go 30 minutes. We don't go a minute over. And so that really concludes our episode. I'm Gunnar Danger.
And I am Jack McManus. And every Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time, We come together and banter about art, life, and everything in between with 2 fingers of bourbon. For all those that joined us, thank you so much, and we are signing off for now.
Right on.